Hi everyone, Squintina here, and it occurred to me that I never actually made a video introducing myself. So I figured I probably should. So yeah, let's do that. My name is Squintina Nightguard. My character resides on Fairy, which will be my forever home for the sole reason that I am a scholar main, and Fairy is a perfect world for a scholar. I'm also an achievement hunter, so I do pretty much a bit of everything in the game. As of this video, I am currently at number 18 on the Fairy rankings on LoL achievements. I'm also an active member of the PvP community, something I never thought I would say when I first started Final Fantasy XIV. Anyway, I love Final Fantasy games. Growing up, I've been playing video games for as long as I can remember, whether it was Power Rangers and Aladdin on my Sega Mega Drive, or Final Fantasy VIII on my PlayStation, or Populous 2 on my father's computer. For the record, my favorite single-player Final Fantasy is Final Fantasy IX, and yes, I did say Sega Mega Drive and not Genesis, because I was born and spent a large portion of my childhood in France. Final Fantasy means a lot to me, as I have treasured memories of playing or talking about the games with my older brother and my father, both of whom also played a lot of Final Fantasy games. However, a monthly subscription was not something I could really ask my parents when Final Fantasy XI came about, and I didn't really have a computer strong enough for the original Final Fantasy XIV. Because of that, my first few MMOs were text and image-based browser MMOs, and a few days of RuneScape before it got blocked on the school computers. My first full MMORPG was World of Warcraft Wrath of the Lich King, back in college after I saw some classmates playing it, and I really loved it. My husband and I were playing it quite a bit, but when Cataclysm came out, we went to play some other MMORPGs, which eventually included Final Fantasy XIV. I first played back during 2.3 on my character Squint on mouse and keyboard as a minor main. However, due to circumstances at work, I ended up taking a break from the game that was meant to be only about a month, but ended up as 3 years, simply because by the time the work circumstances subsided, 6 months later, my husband and I ended up playing some other games that he was interested in. One of the MMOs we played was Terra, which is an action MMO. The thing is, I have small hands. A 12-year-old probably has the same size hands as I do. And I also have really poor blood circulation, that leads to my fingers going numb very quickly if they're stretched too much or in certain ways. This has always made playing PC action games and first-person shooters difficult and uncomfortable on mouse and keyboard for me, and one of the reasons why I played World of Warcraft and Final Fantasy XIV using a 12-button MMO mouse. Not this exact model, but very similar. While an MMO mouse worked great for World of Warcraft, I still struggled with more action-type games, like Terra. However, Terra had controller support, and since I was only playing it casually, I figured, why not? So my first MMO on controller was actually Terra, which I played on my GameCube controller using X360 CE to emulate it into an Xbox 360 controller, which is what Terra supported. And I absolutely loved it. But still, I wasn't a full controller supporter yet, because while it worked okay with most action MMOs that had no tap targeting, like many other mouse and keyboard players, I had my doubts when it came to tap-targeted games like Final Fantasy XIV. So, when I eventually returned to Final Fantasy XIV with a new character, I went back to my MMO mouse, and that is how I started out during Stormblood. However, Stormblood Scholar had a huge, and I mean huge, number of actions, especially if you were manually controlling your fairy and not using SIG. Like a proper Scholar should. If including the fairy actions, Scholar had the most amount of buttons of any job in the game, and even with my MMO mouse helping overcome the issues with my fingers, I still struggled a lot. Mostly because the hotbar modifiers that were allowed on keyboard are Control, Shift, and Alt. Shift isn't too bad, but Control is very uncomfortable for me, and Alt might as well be considered impossible. In some other games, like Warframe, I often remap whatever is on Control to Caps Lock, but in Final Fantasy XIV, it does not let you assign Caps Lock as a hotbar modifier. This essentially only gave me easy access to 2 hotbars, the one without a modifier and the one with shift, which is only 24 actions, while clicking everything else. But then I was thinking of my Terra days and how comfortable I was, and I did a bit of research about how the cross hotbar worked, and I decided to give it a try. I knew the GameCube controller would not have enough buttons, so I grabbed an Xbox 360 controller and went to do fates and command missions and other simple things. It took me a while to adjust, but after a few days, I realized controller was amazing, and I no longer struggled with the amount of buttons Scholar had back in Stormblood, since with the use of the double cross hotbar and expanded, I could easily access 48 buttons, all of which I needed for Scholar. Yes, if you included limit break, roll actions, raid pods, and allocating pet actions on your hotbar instead of using the built-in pet hotbar, Stormblood Scholar could take up a whopping 48 hotbar slots. Especially since, as an achievement hunter who does everything, some of the so-called useless roll actions like Repose were actually useful in specific content like Deep Dungeon or Eureka. Even Break had a special use case in certain Deep Dungeon floors. The button accessibility discrepancy is actually why I kept playing PvP on mouse and keyboard, since unlike PvE, PvP actions actually can't fit on 2 hotbars, and I didn't want to be completely out of practice, though I did start playing PvP on controller as well a few months ago. Anyway, back on topic. Back in Stormblood, I would have so many friends who were surprised I was playing Scholar on controller, mostly people who had never played on controller and, like myself originally, thought it would be harder on the cross hotbars, and they were even more surprised that I was playing it effectively. But the worst part was when I started seeing some controller friends, actual PS4 players, some of whom had been playing for many years, saying the same things, only to realize they weren't making use of those extra configuration features, or didn't know about a built-in button combination. I know I can speak. I can speak, damn it, I can. When I explained how I did certain things, they often didn't realize they could even do that, and that's why I set out to make the comprehensive controller guide, which I officially posted on Reddit for the community back in June of 2018. And that is how the text controller guide was born. After that, I updated the guide for Shadowbringers and started bringing video versions of certain segments. And for Endwalker, the entire guide will be completely rewritten, with hopefully video versions for every single section. So if you're wondering why I'm not posting videos very often right now, that's part of the reason. So expect some more casual style videos like this for the near future while I'm working on that rewrite. Anyway, I think that's enough about me. Let me know about your controller journey, whether you're a person like me that switched or you're a person who's always been a controller, but maybe your journey was learning how to optimize your controller configuration to fit you. Or maybe you just want to say hi or ask questions, whatever. I do try to read every comment, and I will see you all in the next video. Take care.